Thank you for tuning into the Sports Peninsula podcast. Coming up, we're continuing our 2026 NFL Draft prospect coverage with a focus on the linebackers. This group has plenty of day one talent to discuss, as well as some day three gems that should contribute immediately wherever they are drafted. The Detroit Lions have made some moves to shore up this group via free agency, but we cannot rule out a linebacker for Brad Holmes and Company once April 23rd rolls around. We'll rank and preview the class next. Now, here is your Sports Peninsula team. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Peninsula podcast. My name is Dave Drzezinski-Drew, joined by my partner, Coach Angie Shield. And we're talking NFL draft prospects, focusing on the linebackers today. And, Coach, spring is upon us. It is March 21st.
Yeah, we're like 1 month out. I think almost exactly 1 month out. I think the draft is the 22nd to the 24th of April. So we are embarking upon that time here, Drew, and things are really coming into focus with a lot of the prospects in regards to the pre-draft process. A lot of these events, these pro days, are taking place. I know David, my son, he worked and filmed at Michigan State's pro day this past week, and they all are kind of, things are unfolding in regards to wrapping up the pre-draft process. We're talking about the linebackers today, a position that I think there's some really fine football players at, and not just at the top of the list. I think you can go, the wealth is spread on down through our rankings and to really some players that we may not even really speak of today. This is a good position group. It's a position that's valued differently in today's NFL than it was at one time, Drew. Kind of like the running backs. Talk about that for a second.
That's a great point, Coach, because it's a passing league, right? So guess what? You're in nickel and dime coverages, so there's only two linebackers on the field typically. You're right. Now, the middle linebacker, I think, is still that linchpin, but that no longer is that block of granite in the middle. That's got to be a big, like a Jack Campbell type guy, big and mobile. And then you typically, whether it would be, I guess, a strong side linebacker to guard against the run, or you're a spy on the quarterback, whatever the case is. But you're right. And so the onus isn't there. But I like what you said about this draft class, because if you need a starter like that, there's a couple guys available. If you need depth, there's plenty available. If you want to get a special teams contributor who might be able to work their way in the lineup, a lot of that too. But the
edge linebackers.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, there's a few of those we'll talk about definitely. But yeah, you're right. That on the defensive side of the ball, that's the new running back.
Yeah, long gone are those days where that position, which we'll talk about obviously down the road, but the running back position was so coveted, as well was outside, inside, and middle linebackers. You would have all the 3-4 and the 4-3 didn't leave the field, and you would have different archetypes of different types of linebackers, and they would be first overall. Sometimes there'd be 3-5 linebackers drafted in the top 10, but it's just a different day and era. And you mentioned it, Drew, but we do have some fine ones to talk about. So let's go right down through our top 20, starting with number 20, about a guy from the Tide, Alabama, Justin Jefferson, in at 20. At 19 is Eric Gentry from USC. And at 18, one of our dark horses from the Maize and Blue in Ann Arbor, Jay-Sean Barham from Michigan. We'll talk about him a little bit more in depth. At 17, Lander Barton out of Utah. And at 16, another dark horse. Drew, you're going to be speaking on Red Murdoch of those Buffalo Bulls a little bit more in depth later on. At 15, national champion Aiden Fisher from the Indiana Hoosiers. At 14, Keyshawn Elliott from Arizona State. 13, Caleb Alarms-Orr from TCU. And at 12, another dark horse, Drew, a multi-sport guy. Oregon Ducks middle linebacker and Houston Astros outfield prospect Bryce Betcher. He is in at number 12. And at number 11, Harold Perkins Jr. out of LSU, fine linebacker there. And at 10, Torian York out of Texas A&M. At 9, Kyle Lewis out of Pittsburgh, a prospect that's really climbed the ladder. And at 8, Deontay Lawson out of Alabama, one of two members of the Crimson Tide defense on our big board. In at number 7, another dark horse, Drew, and I'm really looking forward to talking about Jacob Rodriguez out of Texas Tech. We've talked about a lot of Red Raiders, in our draft coverage, Here's going to be one more, and there's more to come. And at 6, Josiah Trotter out of Missouri. Into the top 5, we have Jake Galday out of Cincinnati. Number 4 is Anthony Hill Jr. from the Longhorns at Texas. At 3, C.J. Allen from the Georgia Bulldogs. And our top 2 linebackers come from the Big Ten, Drew. They come from Columbus, and they are both Ohio natives. In at number 2 is Sonny Styles out of Ohio State, as well as Arvell Reese, Drew, and that is our top 20 linebackers on the 2026 Big Board.
Yeah, and let's just jump into it. Arvell Reese out of the Ohio State University, a number 1 linebacker prospect on the board. He's 6'4", 241 pounds. He's a junior. And then you mentioned Coach Ohio native out of Cleveland. He was an Army High School All-American Bowl participant. Ran a 4.46 640 time, 6'4", 241, folks. That's fast for a big man. Part of that national championship team in 2024. He was all Big Ten last year. He was the Butkus Fitzgerald Award winner in the Big Ten as the top linebacker last year. And he's consensus All-American as well. Last year, big year, 69 tackles, 10 for loss, 6.5 sacks. For his career, 112 tackles, 13.5 for loss, 7 sacks in 36 games. And he's had over 500 reps at linebacker, nearly 350 at the edge. So, Coach, there's that position versatility we like to talk about.
Position versatility, and there's less than 1,000 reps there accounted for. He probably has some more that does push him over 1,000, but that indicates some lighter load too, which is not necessarily a bad thing. We can point at that one of 2 different ways, but there's a little less wear and tear on that body too because of that.
Yeah.
He's a true hybrid linebacker, prospect here. This is a guy that you can put on the edge, flex out to the edge, play in the slot, blitz, set an edge, and play like a defensive end, and above and beyond all, hang back and be one of those Jack Campbell size, type box linebackers. He has elite tracking speed. He has got sub 4.5 speed at 6'4", 240 plus. So, I mean, and he can just run things down. And as mentioned, he has true positional versatility. In fact, I mean, he could wind up becoming more of an edge type player as he gets older or as he kind of develops and materializes. Because he really leverages the perimeter well. You can see right here he's taking on Giovanni Alhady of U of M and Sterling Heights Stevenson here. He's got kind of an inside control up top, and Hady's really he has poor hand placement here. Arvell Reese is kind of winning this rep just based with his hand placement. He's able to do those kinds of things and leverage and deepen things, force things deeper, which really makes him a pretty strong outside linebacker type football player, Drew. Great instincts, is a high-level football processor. He's been playing backer and making the defensive strength call and getting the adjustment called and executed his whole career. So he's really developed those skills, and you can kind of see that on film. 90.8% tackle rate. That's excellent. Once you are north of 90%, you are a very, very good tackler, and he really is. He probably has the best tackle radius. He probably does. The guy that we're going to be talking about next, Drew, is right there, and he could go in front of him because he kind of possesses some things that Arvell Reese does not possess in regards to coverage. But because Arvell Reese is explosive and active at the line of scrimmage, he really can play there and hang there, and that can be a tough spot. A lot of guys get moved out, and he can kind of do that thing. So not only is he a sideline to sideline tackler, but Drew, he's also strong and tough enough to set an edge and power and bull rush you, and he's athletic enough to be a blitzer. Arvell Reese can come at you a bunch of different ways, Drew, and that's why he's our number 1.
Yeah, he's outstanding prospect, and position versatility, that's certainly a feather in your cap. But when you can be an outstanding linebacker and put your hand in the dirt or in a 2-point stance and be able to rush the quarterback, man, he's got top 10, top 5 written all over him, Coach. I mean, I've given up on Arvell Reese possibly being a Lion unless there's some incredible trade made, which I kind of hope there isn't, because that draft capital is important. It would cost too much to move up to get an Arvell Reese if you're Brad Holmes. So from a Lions perspective, yeah, we're not considering him at all. But man, what a talent! But coach's got some things to work on.
Well, sometimes you got to split hairs when you're making these slides and finding some things to say about guys, because really his first weakness that we'll mention can also be somewhat of a positive too, because he does only have 14 starts in 36 games. When you play at a place like Ohio State, and you mention and look at the linebackers that were playing there before him and see that where they are in the NFL, it's tough to get on the field. It's tough to get on the field as a starter, let alone just tough to get on the field. He's got 36 games under his belt. He's played quite a bit of football. He's a true junior. 14 starts were this year, and he took advantage of those things. But that is also shows that he's a little bit green to the speed and process of the big-time competition. A little bit when it comes to at least being accounted on as a starter. Because oftentimes when you're not starting, you don't make the calls and those kinds of things. But he has proven that he can do that. Pass rush dynamics are work in progress. We mentioned he's very good at the line of scrimmage. He's very good at setting edges. He's very good at playing the perimeter. It's still a work in progress as an edge rusher. Some of those skills, he has the requisite athletic ability to be great, but it's got to develop. Because he is a better pass rusher right now than he is in pass coverage. Though that area is not a strength for Arvell Reese. He is not that great in coverage. He kind of ghosts out at times. You can kind of just Matt Patricia we could go on and on. That's not the Matt Patricia show today, but he's reinvented himself in Columbus, Drew.
Yeah, he has.
He's done very well there, and he got to know that Arvell Reese is not a guy he wants to drop off. He wants to utilize him at what he's best at. So he didn't have him even doing it very much anymore. He just had him rushing the passer. But he's got to get better at that. He's got to get better at that to make that developmental step to being a high-end NFL player, because he's very reliant on his athleticism, which when you have it, why wouldn't you be, right? But you do have to be technically sound and cerebral, especially when you're playing at the highest level. Because you can lose some gap focus due to being over-aggressive and things like that. These are young player things and aggressive mistakes, which at my level where I coach with the Utica and our Eagles, we accept some aggressive mistakes and make those teaching points. Margin for error slims up a little bit the higher that you go into this game, and gotta trim those up. He wants to avoid this tag, Drew. He wants to avoid being a jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah. He doesn't want to be a guy that's good. He's highly athletic and tremendously talented, which is probably going to get him, barring injury, more contracts in the NFL. He's going to be a top 5 pick. But is he going to be a marginal box linebacker and a marginal or decent edge, or a good box linebacker but an okay edge? What is it going to be? And is he going to stay a hybrid? Because that's what he is now, and he brings a lot of value that way. Or is he going to transition probably to the edge, because he does possess a skill set that could be very, very valuable as a pass rusher?
Yeah, I mean, now, coach, say, I guess, as an example, would you say he'd be out of the gates better in a 4-3 or a 4-3-4 type of scheme?
Well, I mean, nowadays you don't. Where would he be probably most valuable? It would probably be in some sort of a 3-4 when you have more diversity of linebacker. But I mean, it just, like you had mentioned before, you have so much more nickel coverage where you have 2 linebackers a lot of time, or dime coverage, where you have 6 defensive backs on the field, and you only have 2 linebackers. So, 3-4, 4-3 be damned. You just see a lot less of that anymore because of the RPOs, the running quarterbacks, the passing, that kind of thing. You just have to be able to adjust and play differently. So what do you see then? Well, he can be one of those box linebackers in like a 2-man linebacker set. And then, yes, you can have him in multiple packages where he would be whatever version of 3-4-4-3 you want to talk about, but he'd be one of those outside linebackers. So that's kind of how you would see him kind of rotate. I don't see him as a middle linebacker type in a 4-3. That's not really what he brings to the table.
Yeah.
In regards to, although he's got great tackle radius, but I think that's what you're going to see him be at, is kind of a nickel inside guy, and then out, away from that, they're going to move him around formations.
Yeah, he's got the potential to be the next name called off the board right after that first pick, in my view. So
very well could. Brings that kind of versatility.
Yeah, absolutely. What do we got number 2, Coach? His teammate.
Well, we're not going too far, Drew. We're staying right in that locker room there in Columbus, and we're going to talk about a guy that could also be the number 1. I mean, he's truly impressive. Sonny Styles. He's a 6'5", 244-pound senior for the Buckeyes, and he's another Ohio native. 2 kids from the state of Ohio. This time, though, not Northeast Ohio. He's a Columbus area guy from Pickerington, Ohio. Okay. So he stayed really close to home to go to college with him and his twin brother. 4.4640. Where did we just hear that about? It must be a requirement to play linebacker in Columbus to run that time. But he also had a 43.5-inch vertical leap, 11 feet 2 inches in the broad jump. This is a tremendous athlete. Played his first 23 games, Drew, as a safety. He was a safety. So this big, long, tall kid played back in the secondary. Yeah, he's another national champion for the 2024 Buckeye National Championship team. 2-time All-Big Ten selection, was an All-American this past season. In 2024, he had 100 tackles. So he hit the century mark. And that's in a passing league, we've seen tackles go down in regards in volume of tackles that we used to see guys. We're used to seeing guys in the 80s and 90s with 130, 140, 150 tackle seasons, or even higher than that in the NFL. That doesn't happen as much anymore. To hit the century mark in that, it's kind of like getting the 50 goals anymore is in the NHL. It's a tough thing to do. 10.5 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, and 5 pass deflections at the line of scrimmage that season. For a career, 244 tackles, 22.5 tackles for loss, 9 sacks, 9 pass deflections, 3 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 pick. He's got a 90% tackle rating. That's outstanding. 570 safety, 800 plus back 300 at edge. So this is a guy all over defense. And this is another likely.
Yeah, I love his skill set. He, like we're seeing safeties like Kyle Hamilton now who are like 6'4", 225 pounds. And when you see a former safety, we saw this with Wayne Fonts was kind of ahead of the curve with Benny Blades a little bit. He was moving Benny Blades down to linebacker. So I like when a converted safety to have that kind of skill in the passing game and then be able to step up into the box. It's impressive for a guy like Sonny Styles to do that. And there's a lot we like about him, Coach. And first of all, talking about alignment and position versatility, like we said, he's a former safety and he's a linebacker now. He's got a lot in his toolbox over there at linebacker to Sonny Styles. He's very comfortable and productive in coverage. He's look at the numbers that Coach just went over. He's freakish athletic ability. He's a former DB. He's got great awareness and football vision. He's a communicator. He's a leader on that field. He can see things. He understands formations and he calls things out. He's a very smart football player. Another near elite Buckeye tackler. Again, the 90% tackle success rate. That's just outstanding. And really, he's heavy-handed and physical at the point of attack too. So he's a strong player. I mean, 6'5", 244, man. You got to love that size and that athletic ability. He can take on blockers, that especially when they're coming, the linemen are coming up from the second level. He can take on those guys, and he can take them out at the line of scrimmage as well. And he's perhaps the best cover linebacker prospect in the draft. Coach, man, I can see why he's kind of 1B to our 1A with Arvell Reese.
Styles is kind of what Reese is not. And that is, a really, really back end cover linebacker, where Reese is a guy that's a little more comfortable in playing the edge when they're not playing box linebackers next to each other these last couple of seasons. He's a former safety. He can really see the game as a DB from that background. He can really envision things, which is going to make him a really good slot linebacker as well. So Sonny Styles can play a lot in coverage, and he possesses all the athletic ability to be an elite blitzer. We know he's a sideline to sideline tackler with great tackle radius. Drew, I mean, it really is splitting hairs in regards to Styles and Reese and what they bring to the table. This is another, in my mind, a top 5 draft pick.
He absolutely is, Coach. You're right. I mean, he's got some stuff to work. I'm going to talk about that in a second here. But man, I mean, it's to have two linebackers from the same school, same draft, both from Ohio, and I mean, it's pretty amazing, and how good they are and how versatile they are. But yeah, Styles has to work on some things. Fluid route runners in man coverage and shifty running backs out of the backfield, they have gotten him. So as good as he is, he's going to be facing the best every week in the NFL. That's got to improve somewhat. He needs a lot of work as a pass rusher still. He's been primarily a coverage guy as a DB, obviously, but we know he can rush the quarterback, but he's got to work on that some more. It's got to be not so much, like you mentioned, with Arvell Reese being a jack of all trades, he wants to avoid being that and a master of none. He's got to work on that a little more. He's got to get much better in coverage. He's much better in coverage right now at the line of scrimmage than at the line of scrimmage at this point. So again, he's going to work on that. And he needs to work on that. He's still learning as a linebacker. He's still kind of new to the position now. So there's a learning curve here somewhat too. But at the same time, he's got a lot of tape that shows he's more incapable of handling it. But again, got to keep working at it. He doesn't shed blocks well as he takes them on. That's something he's got to work on, get a little stronger in that regard. He loses the battle to over-aggression at times, too. He's going to have to be able to, from whistle to whistle, but at the same time, from snap to the whistle play, but at the same time, harness there. You're going to see a lot of yellow hankies on the floor or a lot of blown coverages by over-pursuit, etc. He's got to become better at the line of scrimmage in order to become the complete package. But the potential's there, Coach, and that's why a lot of GMs are salivating over Sonny Styles, and that's why depending on your scheme, depending on your need at the linebacker position or as a pass rusher, Reese and Styles are 1A, 1B in our book.
Yeah, he doesn't play as well with his hands. He's just, again, he's a little more unfamiliar and a little less experienced or inexperienced on playing at the line of scrimmage, which you need to be able to use your hands there. Got to be able to take on blocks too, but a lot of his work is taking on blocks from the box or the slot, just from distance, on climbers. And he's better at that than he is at, he's a stack and shed guy where he's not as astute as, squeezing things down and setting an edge or climbing over the top of blocks. That's a little unfamiliar to him. And once he utilizes that, Drew, we could be talking about one of the most elite and valuable defensive players in the league. If those things don't happen for Sonny Styles, where like for Arvell Reese, it's going to be either or. He's just going to be kind of relegated to a box linebacker. Sonny Styles is going to find that to himself as well. And we've seen what happens with guys in this league that are kind of just typecast as box linebackers and that only. They bounce around. They get a contract and then they kind of get moved on from, because they just see the value in a versatile player playing these positions anymore than they do a guy that's kind of specialized as just a box guy. So Sonny Styles is going to do all he can to avoid that. He's going to avoid that. He will not just be a box guy at the beginning of his career, and I really do see great things from him. He's going to be a fantastic football player.
Yeah, no question. It's going to be fun to see where he ends up in the top 5. Hopefully not in the NFC North, but we're going to see. Number 3, we have C.J. Allen, linebacker out of the University of Georgia, the former Bulldog, 6'1", 230-pound junior. So a 4-star prospect out of Barnesville, Georgia. So he's a Georgia native. He also was an Army High School All-American Bowl participant. He played 41 games and started in 30 for the Bulldogs at Georgia. He was an All-SEC and All-American linebacker last season. For his career, he has over 200 tackles, 13 and a half tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, and 10 passes defended. And here's the nice stat: 92.6% tackle rate. Man wraps up and delivers when he gets his hands on somebody. He brings them down. He had over 1,450 reps in at box linebacker for the Bulldogs. Coach C.J. Allen is a talent.
I just mentioned kind of how just a box linebacker alone does not have the same value in the NFL anymore that it once does. And with that being said, you still need really good box linebackers. You still need really good ones. And C.J. Allen is that. He is that type that can be a middle backer in a 4-3 look. He's not doesn't have a lot of body type to kind of flex down to the edge and be an edge player. Although he can move and blitz, and we'll talk about that. He's probably a little more body and frame wise to be more of a drop guy and a coverage backer. But what he does and does very well is process and communicate on that field. He's that old school middle linebacker, like we had said. Now, Kirby Smart is a modern football player, and they do different things. But think of all the great linebackers that have come out of the University of Georgia that are in the NFL. Here's another one that is coming right through that pipeline. He is, C.J. Allen is right in that conversation and company. He's a dynamo against the run, man. I mean, he can bounce, boogie, and bump against the run. He's got sideline to sideline, tackle radius again. So we're talking about a third guy that can range the field from what's in front of him as a run defender. He's just got a lot of just great textbook tackles on film. Go ahead and YouTube him, folks. It's all I really did. And I mean, you just see him just track things and it gets stuffed. It's not, nothing's bouncing off of him or dragging him 2-3 yards downfield or tangling with him to get some of the cavalry to come in. He can stick things and make them stop. And he takes on blocks and holds gap integrity. Again, elite box linebacker, Drew. That's what C.J. Allen brings to the table. Is he is a top end box backer. With the instincts, with the explosiveness on his triggers and his keys and reading. He's competent in coverage, good, productive, precise blitzer, can hit home, and he's got a handful, a lot of hurries and quarterback hits to his credit. C.J. Allen brings these things to the table, and maybe Reese and maybe Styles have a little more versatility and size than C.J. Allen. But C.J. Allen and the box backer is every bit what those guys are, Drew.
Yeah, he's but the size definitely comes into account here. That's where Reese and Styles, to be able to do what they do at the size that they possess, that's impressive as hell. But C.J. Allen's a very good linebacker. Now, from a Lions perspective, they've got this position covered with Jack Campbell, so they're good there, and he's going to be locked up long term. Hence why Anzalone's no longer on the team, quite frankly, folks. They got to have that money available because Jack Campbell's going to get paid, and rightfully so. This is a day one talent. Where are you seeing him kind of falling, Coach? I'm. It could be anywhere from 10 to 25, I guess, depending on this. And that speaks to what you're talking about with the box linebacker. Like we were saying, it's not as much of it's a niche role, but it's not as most teams usually had 2 guys like that, or 3 even, starting on their team. Now it's 1, basically. So there's fewer jobs.
That's what it is. And I'm not sure he's a lock to be a first round pick. Pending where, Reese and Styles go, or Styles and Reese go, however you want to look at it. And really where, the emphasis goes on runs, whether it's at edge, or if it is at offensive line, if it's at both. That's where you'll start to see, because D-backs and wide receivers are going to be drafted, and that's going to happen. So, could he slide into the early second round? There's certainly potential for that because he's not the most versatile linebacker prospect. He just doesn't bring that versatility as well. He's kind of a steady Eddie, which, again, to call that a ding, he makes all the plays he's supposed to, but he's doesn't bring a lot of dynamic playmaking capability onto the field. That's just not what he does. He's just very, very good at what he does. He's just not quite the same athlete that Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles are. Just not quite that kind of athlete. He's going to be limited, and he could branch out and become a slot guy and develop his coverage skills, which that's what he's going to need to do. He's going to need to do that so he can be a good run pass box linebacker or slot linebacker in empty sets and those kinds of things.
Yeah,
it throws up on his RPOs and play action game a little bit, and that's something that those triggers. He gets into the right program, they'll coach him through those and make him more confident on trusting a trigger and going. Because he's going to struggle a little bit with, I think, some climbing and some second level blocking, especially about the real good ones, especially the real big ones. The Robert Hunts of the world, the 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" guards, and those kinds of things are big giant, Penny Sewell type tackles try to pick you and those kinds of things. They're going to give him some trouble. They're going to give him some trouble being 6'1", 230. So. Another thing that he's got to get better at right away will be man coverage against the big athletic tight ends, because they'll tend to work him a little bit and box him out, just make easy play, easy catch after easy catch after easy catch, 4, 5, 6 yards, 4, 5, 6 yards, 4, 5, 6 yards. Those are the things that CJ Allen's gotta improve upon, so he's not pedestrian out there. And that's the thing that he needs to avoid, because can he make the plays to stay on the field and employed in the NFL? That's the thing that he's going to have to prove in these first couple of seasons, that he can make those stops in the pass game against tight ends, that he can handle himself in coverage, that he can climb and fight through and be a tremendously productive tackler. Those are the things C.J. Allen's got to prove, just like everybody does, right, Drew?
Yeah.
Everybody does, but he's got a little pressure on himself because he doesn't bring versatility to his game like some other guys do.
You're right, Coach. He's got to convince GMs that he's not just potential. He's going to immediately start and he's going to immediately bring an impact to be a day one guy. But the tape says he is, but the stat sheet is his size, his physicality says there could be concerns here. So he's going to have to show, again, convince general managers that I can use this guy in my system and he's going to immediately make an impact. And if he can, absolutely, CJ Allen will make an impact. Nice football player. So we'll see where he ends up. Let's go our number 4 prospect, Coach.
We got Anthony Hill Jr. out of Texas, one of the Longhorns. 6'2", 238-pound junior, 5-star prospect from Denton, Texas. So he stayed home, just like Mr. Allen did in Georgia, and just like Mr. Styles and just like Mr. Reese did in Ohio. They stayed in home at their home state schools. Another Army High School All-American Bowl participant here. So he was a high-level prospect. Of course he is, if he's a 5-star. 4'5", 140. So a guy has got some great speed. 10.5 broad jump. Was a 2023 freshman All-American for the Longhorns. A 2-time All-SEC selection and a 2-time All-American. So this is a decorated player that's been recognized for what he's done on the field since the very outset that he came to Austin, Drew, and started playing for the Longhorns. 113 tackles, 16.5 tackles for loss, and 8 sacks, 4 forced fumbles in 2024. So a couple of years ago, Anthony Hill was just absolutely lights out. 249 tackles on the career, 31.5 tackles for loss, 17 sacks, 3 picks, 8 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, and 4 pass deflections. So he is an absolute playmaker out there. Anthony Hill Jr. has made a ton of plays, forced a ton of turnovers, for Texas in his career there. 88.7 tackle rating. You know, still very, very good, still well above average. You want to see that, you know, when you touch 90, you know, that's you're really cooking with fire. But he's a very productive tackler, very productive tackler. 1,480 plus reps at box linebacker, about 200 reps on the edge. Again, Drew, this is a guy that is a great, great box linebacker first. Has a little bit, he's honeymooning a little bit with some edge stuff, but probably a box linebacker, slot backer guy that you can do a few things in regards to some pass rush stunning with. Anthony Hill Jr. is a very, very interesting and very close prospect in a lot of ways to Mr. Allen.
Very, very good comparison, Coach. Yeah, and then we'll talk about what we like and what he needs to work on him in a minute here. But yeah, I really like his versatility. His tape looks great. Very athletic, like you said. I mean, just a notch below some of the guys we've talked about already, but still extremely athletic. That 2024 campaign was outstanding. But I'm going to jump into what we like about Anthony Hill Jr. And the junior linebacker here out of Texas, and he's an excellent football processor. He's got a mind for the game. He has a high IQ, and he's a sideline to sideline guy with a great tackle radius as well. He's a very good pass rusher and blitzer, and hence starting to moonlight into that edge role, which is certainly should help him on draft day. But you know, we're gonna talk more about that. He's got a lot of experience as a cover linebacker as well. So not only can he put his hand in the dirt or in the 2-point stance and rush the quarterback, he can drop back and cover. Downhill, he's a physical run defender, and he's 6'2", 238. Pretty an average frame for a linebacker, but he could probably even add a little more mass to that frame, even especially if he's going to be putting his hand in the dirt in the NFL. He's going to have to. But he's got great intuition. He can be a gap owner, which is out. I love that discipline. And he's a turnover machine, like you said, Coach. A playmaker, and he's a 40-game battle-tested soldier. He's played some football, and he's definitely been successful, Coach. A lot to like about Anthony Hill Jr.
Yeah, as far as like comparing him to C.J. Allen, which I guess would be the fair comparison after comparing the two Buckeyes to one another. Because they are very similar prospects. They're very similar that they're box linebackers first. Hill may bring a little more versatility when it comes to being able to play at the line of scrimmage. But it's very foreign to him at this point in time. He does a real good job blitzing. He may be a better blitzer than C.J. Allen. He's just not as good as a box linebacker as C.J. Allen from the point of trigger to tackle. Anthony Hill Jr. has maybe a little more jack of all trades in him, a little more Swiss Army knife in him, which are great things to have as long as you're schooled, skilled, and tooled to bring those to the table, Drew.
Yeah, great points, Coach. Great points. And so let's talk about what does he need to work on. He's a very good tackler, but he can lose ground or give up yards in play. So, again, stuff that he still needs to work on. He triggers hard, like you said, and he loses hard from time to time as a result. So, live by the sword, die by the sword, right? But we love his aggression, but again, got to be, especially in the NFL, he cannot be over aggressive and over pursue. He does, being a gap owner is a feather in his cap. It's got to translate to the NFL. It's got to. Body control in his attack, it's still kind of a work in progress. He can get out leveraged and locked up against good offensive linemen. Definitely a concern. And I think that's, quite frankly, a lot of teams are seeing him, from what I'm hearing, Coach, as more of an edge guy and more of a blitz package guy. But there is some concern there about whether he can hold up in that at his frame. We're going to see. So he struggled with backs out of the backfield as well in coverage. And he's another casualty to over-aggression, like we said. He can overrun plays at times. And his body control and physical refinements, they just got to occur to be a long-term NFL linebacker. Do we see the potential? Yes. Do we see the tape and it looks good? Absolutely. The concerns are, in my mind, coaches, does he have the frame to be able to hold up playing his game in the NFL?
Yeah, and there's some just, if the developmental tracks, or the developmental markers aren't met and he doesn't stay on those tracks, I think we could look at it a Jared Davis type, kind of a bounce around guy that has tremendous physical ability, does bring some things and brings physicality to a defense, but is never quite bridled enough to be truly counted on as a every down linebacker. He could be, no more than a special teams rotational piece, or a sub package guy in like a blitz package type thing. Because he does do that very well, and that's something I think you're going to see of Anthony Hill Jr. early on. Could he become a designated pass rusher? That's very possible here. I see a really good prospect. I do. I see a early day two, second round draft pick, and somebody that's going to make an impact as a designated pass rusher, and that can very well likely evolve into being a box linebacker, blitz, heavy linebacker that really is a big value piece somewhere. I like Anthony Hill Jr.
I agree with you, Coach, and I like him on day two, early in the second round. Absolutely. There's something about, like you mentioned, Jared Davis is a great comparison in the sense that's a first round pick right there. I believe 20th overall by the Lions the year he was picked, or 16th one. I forget off the top of my head, but there's an expectation. Let's face it, when you're a day one guy versus a day two guy, even, and I would rather see an Anthony Hill Jr. or any prospect like Hill that it's really good but needs to do a little bit more work, a little stronger, whatever the case is. I'd rather see them in day two. I think they just have a better shot at developing because they don't have that day one expectation over their head. And some guys thrive on it. Most guys thrive on it. Some guys do not. But I like him on early day two. But I love his versatility, so we're going to see where he ends up. Our number 5 prospect is Jake Galday out of the University of Cincinnati. We've talked about a few Bearcats in our coverage so far, and you can check that out on YouTube.
We're not done yet either. There's more to come.
Yeah, there's more to come. That's right. You can check that out. We got our playlist there for all our prospect coverage. But Jake Galday, linebacker at Cincinnati, 6'4", 239-pound senior. He hails from Arlington, Tennessee, transferred from Central Arkansas. This good athlete here, 39-inch vertical and a 10.5 broad jump. 125 tackles and 10.5 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries in 26 games at UCA before transferring. When he did, he's a 2-time All-Big 12 player at Cincy. Last season, 105 tackles, 6 for loss, 3.5 sacks, and 3 passes defended. For his career at Cincinnati, 163 tackles, 13 for loss, 5 sacks, 5 pass defenses, 3 forced fumbles, and 24 games with Cincy. He has an 88.8% tackle rate at Cincy. He's played over 950 reps in the box. He's played over 500 reps at the slot linebacker, and he's had over 250 reps at the edge. You want to talk about versatility, Coach? Jake Galday's got it.
He's got versatility. He's got experience. He's played a lot of football. He's He's from rural Tennessee. Probably lightly recruited a little bit. Rural areas are recruited typically a little bit lighter. You really have to, to get yourself showcased to be seen when you're not in some of the bigger, high-profile, schools and conferences. That automatically seem to draw a lot of that recruiting. So he went to Central Arkansas and played there, played some FCS football to start his career, and that went real well. And he springboarded himself to Cincinnati, where he was physically mature and ready to play. So he's played a lot of football. We talked about a lot of guys with their reps in the 500s, 600s, to about 1,000 total. He's got about almost 2,000 total. So he's alignment versatile with some ability to play the edge, and that's growing. That's growing, Drew. Jake Galday's ability to play over to the line of scrimmage and on the line of scrimmage is really evolving. Very fluid and productive cover linebacker. Spent a lot of time in coverage, especially early on in his career, and has started to kind of evolve towards this hybrid role as an edge type as well. You can drop and Jake Galday and he can bring that kind of versatility onto the football field. Another great tackler, another really strong tackler, 88.8% tackle rate, very, very strong, very competitive, great game speed guy, a hard running motor, which all linebackers kind of are. They're that kind of player, very aggressive athletes usually. And I think, we have talked about 5 guys so far that are sideline to sideline radius guys. You have to be, if you're going to be, one of these 2-box, nickel linebackers or dime linebackers. You've got to be able to cover the field, and he certainly can do that. He really does have that frame to be that true linebacker edge hybrid. He brings that to the table. 6'4", already approaching 240, maybe north of 240 by now. He gets into the NFL and seasons up. A 6'4", 250 plus guy definitely can bring that kind of versatility to things because he attacks and sheds blocks well. He does possess some skills that really translate to playing on the line of scrimmage, Drew, and being somewhat of a defensive end, and being a good run defender at the line of scrimmage, not just a pass rusher, and working on the edge that way too. Jake Galladay brings a lot of things, to the table that very dependable, very, very likable prospect here.
Yeah, he's rock solid. In my mind, personally, I think he's got as high, if not a higher ceiling than our last 2 that we've talked about. But I think there's also more of a chance of that floor's a little lower as well. Not much, but I think that's what kind of separates. But I like the fact that he has this toolbox along with that physical frame that he can build on, Coach. But he's got to work on a few things still. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, he brings a little more versatility. He brings a little bit more versatility than the last 2 linebackers. He's a little more versatile than Allen, who's just truly a box guy. Hill brings a little versatility, but Galladay's got a little more experience and is proven to be a little more versatile than him as well. But he does struggle with climbers. He struggles with pullers. He can get kind of pinned and washed out a lot, and that there's a lot of evidence of that, and more so as his first year with Cincinnati than his second, which he was taking a big competitive leap in football, and the Big 12 was no joke. But he got blocked. He got blocked and pinned in a lot, which those are things that obviously the best linebackers are able to read, trigger, and avoid that, and he or fight over the top of it and beat it right away and get in on plays. There's a lot of evidence where Jake Galladay is just kind of blocked. And, so that's out there. It's been baptism under fire, as a linebacker. He did start out as an edge at Central Arkansas. That's what he was. And, his frame just kind of, put him, and they started to experiment with him as a box guy or a slot guy and move him off the football a little bit. And, he's still kind of developing that. Having said that, he's got to work on his pass rush plan, because by the time, he was really kind of getting to be acclimated as a college edge rusher and defensive end edge player, they moved him back to the linebacker spot. So, he's still a work in progress, even though he's a senior. He's got some refinement to do because his trigger and response, it needs a little work yet. That's not quite there. He definitely does not do that as well as C.J. Allen or Hill. So, and really, he's kind of still developing a somewhat that styles in those guys are. So, Jake Galladay's got a little ways to go there. And again, he's got to kind of answer the question that, is beckoned here. Is he a hybrid linebacker or is he an edge? Very similar to our number 1 guy. He's either going to be both or they're going to move him to the edge.
Yep. Yeah, you're right, Coach. And so there's more work to do. Like I said, I like his ceiling. I think he's a solid day 2 guy. I believe he's a solid second-round pick. Not quite sure where it's shaking out, but that's where I'm seeing him going, Coach. How about you?
Second round.
Second round, yep.
He's second round. He's a second-round draft pick and a guy that's going to play a lot of football next year somewhere.
And he could develop into a very good Pro Bowl level player. Absolutely, he's got the talent and ability to do it. We got some dark horse candidates to talk about, Coach. We're starting with you. Let's go.
Guy I'm excited about, and it's Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech. He's one of the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Like I said, we've been talking about these guys a lot. 6'1", 231-pound senior. He's a 4-star prospect out of Wichita Falls, Texas, as a QB. Yes. He was the number 3 dual threat quarterback in the nation in the class of 2021. 38.5-inch vertical leap. Transferred from Virginia, where Virginia recruited him as kind of an offensive kind of muse, a quarterback where they started to kind of flex him out and use him in different formation sets, and kind of was like an H-back for them a lot of the times, and played in 12 games. But he transferred to Texas Tech, and the rest is history, Drew, because he is the 2025 Bronco Nagurski Trophy winner, Butkus Award winner, Lombardi Award winner, Bednarik Award winner, Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, and was a Heisman Trophy finalist that played both ways for a playoff team.
Crazy.
This is their most valuable player. And his name is not Bailey, who's going to also get drafted very, very, very high in this draft. Two-time All-American at Texas, two-time All-Big 12 for the career. 317 tackles, 25.5 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, 13 forced fumbles, 12 pass deflections, 6 interceptions, 5 fumble recoveries, 2 defensive touchdowns in 44 games. This has been a high volume playmaker and tackle producer at the college level, Drew. He is a football player. He's and he brings to the table. He's a quarterback out there on defense. He's an amazing processor and communicator. He sees the game like an offensive player, so he can really adjust and diagnose what they're doing, and he does that very well. Texas Tech was an amazing defense this past year. He's a tackle and turnover machine. He's just simply always around the play. There's guys. A very strong functional athlete, or and some wildcat quarterback type stuff for Texas Tech as well. Violent block destructor, uses his hands well, very high level run defender. Drew, I am a major fan of Jacob Rodriguez because he reminds me of somebody else on the Lions that also has the last name Rodriguez.
Yeah.
And but this guy may be a little bit more and bring a dynamic out there, that Rodrigo does. He has missed some tackles. He's not the most elite tackler out there. He's 6'1", 230, so he's C.J. Allen's size, but not quite the tackler C.J. Allen is. He's missed tackle with a little more frequency than some of the other guys. Can be feast or famine in coverage. He's 6'1", 231. And like I said, he plays hard and aggressive, and he can very well kind of give himself up, at times as well. When he's in man coverage, especially. He's undersized, and that frame's fairly maxed out. I don't think you can really do much more with Jacob Rodriguez's frame. So really, he's got to prove that he can match up physically. But Drew, this is a box slot LB extraordinaire. He is a special teams player. He is a guy that can be an offensive ace in your back pocket. This is a football player, Drew, that's going on day 2 somewhere and go make a football team, and they're going to use him.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the only question is at the bottom there: can he match up physically? And if he can, and like you mentioned, Malcolm Rodriguez. I mean, I know he's had an injury. That was a knee, but overall, Rodriguez held up well. He's done everything you were talking about. And when he's had to come in and take reps out on that field, he's done his special teams certainly. But he's performed well. Yeah, Jacob Rodriguez has a higher ceiling too, and Rodrigo was a day 3 guy, 5th round pick. So there's a lot here to like about Jacob Rodriguez. He's a gamer, no question. You got one more, Coach, we want to talk about.
Yeah, and not to drown things out and drone things on forever, but the Lions have made some more moves as of late, and it's kind of shown maybe the direction where we're going in day 1. And it's going to stay on the offensive side of the football into that offensive line because we have made some moves with some edge type football players, but we're certainly not done there.
No.
And it can be I'm not in the room, so I'm not sure who it could be, but this is a prospect to me, Drew, that I think on day 3, and I think he's going to be there on day 3. That could be of great interest, and that's Jayshon Barham out of Michigan. Linebacker edge hybrid, 6'4", 240-pound senior. From District Heights, right from outside D.C., District Heights, Maryland. He was a 4-star recruit, played for Biff Poggi at St. Francis. So he's a St. Francis alum. We've talked about a couple of those guys in the draft so far. Originally went to play for Coach Loxley at Maryland, and he was a freshman All-American. I mean, he played and started that, and he was a box linebacker, and he was in and around everything there. Decided to transfer to Michigan after the 2023 season. So he came here, right, as we won, or Michigan won the national championship. 2025 all Big Ten at Michigan. 95 tackles, 9.5 tackles for loss, 7 sacks in 23 games at Maryland. 98 tackles, 13.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, and 5 pass deflections in 25 games with the Wolverines. Over 1,000 reps at box linebacker and nearly 500 reps at edge. So he's a very well-versed and experienced hybrid player. 23 career tackles for loss, 12 sacks, 40-plus hurries, and 15-plus quarterback hits. So he's shown that he can hit home and be a very effective pass rusher. As we're trying to round out this edge spot opposite Aiden Hutchinson, and we've got DJ Wanham. We made another signing yesterday with, I know, a guy that does kind of like, what are we doing here? We're going after another injury, plagued player. It's a 1-year deal that we're going to be looking at there. So we are obviously looking for more players that can help us on our edge.
Yeah.
Because and Jay Sean Barham offers that kind of true positional versatility. He really can. He can help in the box where we are pretty good. It seems like we've got our guys there, so to speak. But he could definitely support and help and be a depth piece there as well. A very high level functioning athlete. You can just kind of tell there he's got a great athletic frame, very good football instincts as a box guy, as a box linebacker. And he's a good fit block destructor. He was so well coached at Michigan. On a multiple levels, and just so well coached. And he plays with really heavy, violent hands at the line of scrimmage, which is going to get him more and more acclimated to the edge. He's much better pass rusher, than he is a pass dropper in coverage. That's why I think he proved that in Maryland. He was dynamic on the run, but struggled in pass coverage. His read and recognition triggers can seem slow at times, and that he's an experienced, he's a box guy by trade. So for him to trigger a little bit differently than maybe some of these other prospects we've talked about speaks to that. Those are things that need to obviously continue to get better. He's a tweener, he's a tweener with great upside, but where, is it a hybrid? Or does he need to kind of go to edge? If he does, he needs to kind of diversify, because I've also talked to some people that aren't thrilled with him as an edge player, that love him as a more of a box linebacker. But I think he's an intriguing prospect, Drew. I think he's somebody the Lions have definitely talked to. They've talked about making him a Sam linebacker, a Derek Barnes type of linebacker for the Lions. They have interviewed him and talked with him. If he were to be there on day 3, I'd be very, very happy to see him turn that, maize and blue into Honolulu blue and silver.
Yeah, definitely. And the Lions have Campbell, Barnes, Rodrigo, and there's a few others on, but those are your top 3. But certainly Barnes would be that guy that would be Barnes' understudy and somebody you could rotate in potentially as an edge rusher in certain packages. So yeah, absolutely be interested in him coming to Detroit. Do like his versatility, but definitely day 3. But yeah, absolutely like him a lot. I got a couple coach we want to talk about here. Brian Betcher out of Oregon, 6'1", 233-pound senior. He is a Eugene, Oregon native, and he was a dual sport athlete in football and baseball. He's the 13th round pick in 2024 of the Houston Astros, an outfielder. He's the Burleson Trophy winner for the nation's top walk-on in 2024. That's impressive. 2-time All-Big Ten player in football. Last year he had over 100. He had 136 tackles, 5.5 for loss, a sack, and 6 passes defended. Active. For his career, 269 tackles, 16 for loss, 4 sacks, 10 passes defended, and 4 forced fumbles. 89.9% career tackle rate, and over 1,300 reps in the box as a linebacker. Brian Betcher is an active, very experienced football player. He's another football processing phenom. He's a strong. He's got a strong IQ. He can see the field well. He's tremendously versatile and as a functional athlete. He's to be able to play baseball and football. Very, very difficult to do. Not many have been able to pull that off. Tremendously versatile and a functional athlete. He's got a relentless motor. He's an excellent run defender. Concerns, smaller frames. He's limited to the box and likely not going to be able to. He's pretty much maxed out as well. Much like we talked about Galde earlier. He doesn't blitz or rush well. He may struggle getting off blocks in the NFL, so he's got to overcome the size and speed concerns. But coach, this is another football player that we were talking about earlier. You mentioned that Brian Betcher's a football player.
Yeah, and he's a Brandon Burlsworth Award winner. It means he walked on. He walked on because he's under scholarship to play baseball. I mean, he's from Eugene. He stayed right in the state and right in the city, and that he grew up in and went to college. And his first year he played baseball. He was a baseball player, and he scuffled a little bit. He was a Gatorade Player of the Year out of the state of Oregon. Pressure was on his shoulders. Decided to kind of change things up a little bit. He went out for football, and he stayed playing baseball, and things kept on climbing. And I'm not exactly sure where he is at with things, because this certainly would factor into where he could go in the draft. If he is playing for the Houston Astros, he was drafted in the 13th round, which is not a gimme draft pick. That's one that you have to really kind of show and prove yourself within a couple of years, or you get bounced out. I'm not so sure that he's playing right now, at least on a full-time basis. And as he progresses, much like Kyler Murray and some of these other guys, the baseball's just going to go away, at least for the time being. But yeah, he was a phenomenal baseball player, that multi-sport type of athlete. We've talked about these guys and seen what they've been. And all the different stories that we have, the Joe Mauers, the Alex Rodriguez's, the Bo Jacksons, the Brian Jordans, the Charlie Wards, the Tony Gonzalez's, all these guys, Antonio Gates, all these guys that could bring that kind of versatility, show tremendous playmaking skills. So Brian Betcher, I'm not exactly sure where he goes. He does possess, I think, day two capability, certainly at least in the round three, because he's going to bring a lot of different things to the table. Where is he with his baseball? Because if he's taking up time and not going to be in, your facility, working on things, because these guys are, that would be a little bit of a thing that could peg him down the board a little bit as well. But very intriguing guy.
Yeah, he's an interesting prospect. Assuming he stays with football, yeah, you're right. He's got day two potential in the third round, like you said. I see him definitely more as a probably fourth round, day three guy, but lots to like there. He's interesting. And I got another prospect here, similar in stature. Red Murdoch out of Buffalo for the Bulls, out of the MAC, linebacker, 6'2", 232-pound senior, Petersburg, Virginia native, and he prepped at Fort Union Military Academy. He was also an All-American last year and a two-time All-MAC linebacker. He had 298 tackles, 30 for loss, 7 sacks, 13 forced fumbles in his last 2 seasons at UB. That's a lot of good work there for his career. 364 tackles, 39.5 for loss, 9 sacks, 17 forced fumbles in 42 games, nearly 2,000 reps at box linebacker. Red Murdoch's played a lot of football, and he's been very successful, and he's gotten better over the last 3 years. When we look at how he grades out and just looking at him on film, he keeps getting better. And why is that? Well, he's a tackling machine, as it's illustrated. I don't know if we've seen higher tackling statistics than everyone we talked about. He's a very active football player, extremely physical and violent, handed defensive player, and he's a good blitzer. He's extremely forceful and impactful on the ball, and he's got outstanding football instincts. He's got a high IQ out there. Needs to work on his speed and functional athleticism. They're not quite the same as the other prospects. You can see that on film a little bit. He has a tighter tackling radius than other prospects as well. He does struggle in coverage at times. He is a much better blitzer and run defender than a cover linebacker. There's no question about that. He's not ready for every down yet in the NFL. Coach, the reason I like him is not because he's from the MAC, but because, again, I see him getting better and better, and he graded out really, really well last year just by looking at him on tape, but also seeing how he even graded out Pro Football Focus. I believe he gave him a 92.4 for last season. He's a very good football player. What do you think?
Well, I mean, if your name is Red Murdoch, I mean, you're destined for football fame, baseball fame, hockey fame, pro wrestling fame, boxing fame, comic book character fame, military fame. I mean, you know, pilot fame. I mean, that's just the red-blooded American man's name right there, Red Murdoch. And he was prolific. Now at Buffalo, you had alluded to that. You mentioned that, you know, we're talking about a MAC level player from a standpoint of where he's played the majority of his competition. But I mean, requisitely, he dominated. He absolutely dominated. My concerns with Red Murdoch is he's a box guy. This is not a person that's very, very versatile as far as alignment. You know, he's a box guy, and I think a box run defender / special teams guy that can evolve over time. Truly a player to watch get drafted. He is going to. I am like you, Drew. I really think, you know, think this guy has got a lot to possess because he's had so much success. I mean, he's just been a tackling machine, you know, in Buffalo. So, you know, where does Red Murdoch fit? Could he fit here? You know, we just made a free agent signing at linebacker. So, you know, I'm not so sure that where the Lions are thinking at linebacker. I think they are. Mm-hmm. Where does Red Murdoch go? Probably day 3. I think we're thinking day 3 here. Where could be towards the beginning, could be more in the middle, because again, a guy that's going to make a lot of plays in the preseason and find himself on a 53-man, going to definitely get himself 5-6 years in this league at the very least.
I think he gives a lot of value in the 5th or 6th round potentially. Tremendous value there. To your point, he's going to contribute right away on special teams, and the better he gets, he's going to get on the field and take some reps, you know, in 3-down territory as well. So that's what we're looking for from Red Murdoch. Hopefully, works out for him. He could be. I mean, that's the type of guy you really want to have on your team. He reminds me kind of, you know, Cameron Reeves-Maben, right? I mean, and then you've got like Rodrigo, those kind of guys. They're going to help you tremendously on special teams, and they could absolutely help you on the field, and you know, in regular offensive defensive snaps. But Coach, your final thoughts on this group before we wrap it up?
I like the linebacker group. I really do. I think there's a lot of value at the top end of this draft on day 1 and early day 2 and throughout day 2. And some real good football players are going to make 53-man rosters on day 3. I'm very intrigued by it. I really like them.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. And again, getting back to the Lions, like you said, they have addressed the position, and they're going to be paying. Campbell's going to get an extension. So hence why Anzalone's not in the club anymore. But it's great that they have Barnes locked up, and he played pretty well last year, so that's good. He's over the injury. Rodrigo, same situation. He was able to come back. He showed what he can do. It's good to have him back. So, yeah, they might not address the position here, but it wouldn't surprise me on day 3 if they did. You know, depending on how things shake out, I mean, if somebody were to slip down that has the edge capability at 50, I don't know. It's possible they could look that way. But I'm with you. That day 117 pick, more than likely offensive line, depending on how it does feel that way, yeah. But it's going to be fun to watch, so we'll be sticking and staying. And folks, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We're going to be putting out more content, getting all position groups covered all the way to the mock draft that we'll have for the first round right before that April 23rd, day 1. So for Coach Andy Shield, I'm Drew. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon. This has been a Sports Peninsula podcast. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. You can also follow us on X as well as Facebook so you don't miss an episode. When you want to hear all about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one Sports Peninsula podcast.